Okay. Alright, guys. Let's run this through. If you get any questions on the 1970s, and you're wondering what you should... Will there be room for people who opted to take the AP digital test at school? I would, if you want to take the digital AP at school, I'm sure it can be accommodated. I would email sooner rather than later. Yes? Okay? Stick around and we can talk about it, but I'm sure there could be. Especially if you don't, if you're worried about access or like online or your computer, if you feel more comfortable. I would email two people, Tara Khan and Max, the IT guy, okay? If you want to take it at school, it is an option, I'm sure. Okay, if you get a question about the 1970s, if you get a question, it sucks, right? You have bad economy, you have an oil crisis. Hey guys, welcome to the new oil crisis. Have any of you guys gone out and put gasoline in bags? No? You're missing out. Nobody? Nobody's putting gasoline in bags? I applaud you. It's a terrible idea. Anyway, energy crisis, oil embargo, Soviets invaded Afghanistan, we lost Vietnam, the economy is terrible. Anything you think about the 1970s, think it sucked. It was a bad time for most things. Music, do we like disco? Does anyone like disco? Do we like bell bottoms? I don't know. I don't know. Bad music, bad Jimmy, I guess so. Okay. You guys are like, I feel like the 70s are making a comeback. Maybe because we feel like an identity with them. Anyway, I was born in the 70s. That was good. But Reagan is going to kind of like pop out and he is going to be like, you know what? America is awesome, right? You had Carter who was like, it's a crisis of confidence, right? We all just need to believe. And then Reagan is like, no, we are going, he is the original Make America Great Again. Like literally, I'm not just saying this, like he literally came up, his campaign was Make America Great Again, and Trump plagiarized it. So Reagan's conservative vision is, Vietnam was a noble cause. We lost it, but it was worth it. He's going to renew the Cold War and reassert American power and like patriotism. He literally surrounded himself with flags. He was like traditionalism and folksy and states' rights and individualism and feel good. He's like, we don't have anything to feel bad about America. We are back, right? So Ronald Reagan comes in 1980 and people love him. This is the end of the liberal consensus. It is the end of the belief in big government. And if I remembered one thing about Reagan, I would say his inaugural address, he said the government is not the solution to the problem. The government is the problem. Up until Reagan, think about LBJ. We have a problem with, poverty. We're going to have a war on poverty. We're going to have HUD and Medicaid and Medicare. Starting with the Great Depression, we have seen the government as a source of a solution for the problem. And now that comes to an end. He's like, let's limit the government. We're going to have tax cuts. We're going to have deregulation, trickle-down economics. We are going to cut the government down. And I think the other thing I would remember about Reagan is his stance with the evangelicals. Why were the 70s? Why did they suck? Well, it was the government was the problem. And the other problem is that we have turned our back on God, right? So, a couple of things happened in the 1960s. One is the Supreme Court case of Engel v. Vital, where we take prayer out of school. Conservatives see this as like a violation of their free expression of religion. Liberals see this as a prevention of the government establishment of religion. And there is a divide. This is called like polarization, right? We are polarizing the nation over this issue of prayer in school. And abortion is really polarizing the nation. We have Roe v. Wade also in the 1960s. Conservatives are seeing this as like legal murder. And liberals see it as a right to privacy, an important aspect of women's rights. But what's happening is the conservatives, the evangelicals, see this and they are like, religion and politics must mix, right? And it's back to this idea that if we are turning our face against God, he will turn our back to us, right? And so this is like old time Puritanism. This is nothing new. This is this idea that we have to get back in the graces of God or things are going to fall apart. All right. One of the people, some people, not many, call this the Third Great Awakening. One of the people that is involved in this is Jerry Falwell. Now, I am not going to... This is about 9/11, this clip. Let me stop the share because I got to try to make sure the video is... There we go. All right, I'm going to share this video. This is Jerry Falwell. This is on 9/11. So this is a more recent clip of him. He goes all the way back to the 1970s. But I think that his diatribe here explains a lot about like their worldview, and yeah. I'm just gonna let it roll.
This is the first time that we've been attacked on our soil. First time, and by far the worst results. And I fear, as Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, said yesterday, that this is only the beginning. And with biological warfare available to these monsters, the Husseins, the Bin Ladens, the Arafats, what we saw on Tuesday, as terrible as it is, could be minuscule if in fact God continues to lift the curtain and allow the enemies of America to give us probably what we deserve.
Well, Jerry, that's my feeling. I think we've just seen the antechamber to terror. We haven't even begun to see what they can do to the major population.
The ACLU's got to take a lot of blame for this.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I'll hear from them for this, but throwing God, or successfully with the help of the federal court system, throwing God out of the public square, out of the schools. The abortionists have got to bear some burden for this, because God will not be mocked, and when we destroy 40 million little innocent babies, we make God mad. I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen.
Well, I totally concur.
All right, so that list of people, right? This goes back all the way to the 70s, right? And I mean,
this is
so I'm not gonna play that. Jerry Falwell, these culture wars, right? We're polarized around culture wars. So you have feminism, right? So we have, at one point, we have the rise of like women's liberation. We have women trying to like really challenge the patriarchy. We have people advocating for what was the Equal Rights Amendment. And the Equal Rights Amendment was literally just a amendment that was proposed for the Constitution that says you cannot discriminate based on gender. Now, conservative women are going to go against this because they feel like their privileges are being stopped, right? And so conservative women are like, we don't want to be equal to men, we don't think we're equal to men, and we don't want an amendment that say we are. And so conservative women are going to organize in the church, they're going to bake bread, and they're going to go against like this kind of like anti-feminism. And they're successful. They stop the ERA. We do not have this amendment. And this was Phyllis Schlafly with gay rights, right? Make some like movement forward, starting with Stonewall and moving on. And you're going to have Save Our Children, which overturned local laws prohibiting discrimination. You have abortion. You're going to have the rise of the two camps of like pro-choice and pro-life. You have the Hyde Amendment being passed. Civil rights is also dividing folks, where you have the Southern Democrats are becoming Republicans. Originally, there was this idea of busing. This happened in some like northern cities. They were like, well, we're never going to truly have integration if we have like, differing neighborhoods. So for example, I don't think it happened in New Orleans, but it would be like as if, we took kids from say like the lower 9th ward and took them like uptown, right? And you kind of put kids together. This is like different now because we have charter schools, but that was it. So they're going to stop the busing. They're going to try to go hit back against affirmative action. And you have sort of the rise of anti-immigrants, but it wasn't as big of a thing then. These culture wars have deadly consequences when HIV/AIDS emerges. I usually actually do like a whole day on this. I'm really apologize for like, I feel like I'm just like glossing over all of this. But HIV/AIDS comes up, and the culture, like the right, is going to say this is God's punishment, because who was getting AIDS in the beginning is they called it the gay cancer. Also, drug users were getting it. And so the conservatives are like, well, this is what it is, right? Reagan really ignores the issue at first. He doesn't put a lot of investment in it. We don't even know what it is. And then it's decimating gay communities. ACT UP and gay rights are literally going to fight for their lives in the 1980s. They organize, because if they don't organize, they're going to be dead, right? And so you have the rise of like the two kind of camps, and AIDS is like escalating it. The other thing is the economic side. So you have like the evangelical kind of cultural side to Reagan, and then you have the economics. And in his economics, this is called Reaganomics or trickle-down economics. And all throughout, from the Great Depression, we have, and the New Deal, we've been giving money to the poor. Now what are we going to do is we're going to cut taxes for the rich. They're going to invest in jobs. We're going to increase revenue, and we're going to have workers gaining pay, right? This is this idea of trickle-down economics. And it's this belief that if we put money, it'll trickle down. Now, this is critical of it, right? Because before, what we were doing was giving money to the poor and having it go up, and now we're giving money to the rich, and it doesn't really trickle down. And one evidence, the economy does do really well in the 1980s, but if you look at this trend of income inequality, so this is how much the top 1%, right? This is income inequality, right? In 28, right before the Great Depression, we have the rich and we have the poor. And then because we tax the rich and we have these programs for the poor, it actually goes down. But then in 1980, Reagan is going to cut the taxes for the rich and cut spending for the poor, and we are going to have, again, an increase in income inequality. I would maintain that since Reagan, we have had like a conservative consensus up until literally, I would say very recently, and we are in the midst of rethinking this, is that tax cuts are good, right? Tax cuts are good. And so every president pretty much from Reagan is like, we are going to cut taxes. We're going to cut taxes on the rich. We're going to cut taxes on the poor. Like, these are what we do. Because we cut taxes, you're going to have the rise of the super rich, right? One of the super rich people, well, he's sort of super rich. What happened here? He just crashed. What's one super rich guy? Well, he thinks he's super rich. I don't think he's actually super rich, because he was like, he had bankruptcy a couple of times in the 80s. Sorry, guys. This just crashed. Is Donald Trump, right? You have this idea that greed is good. You have the rise, the economy is doing well, Wall Street is doing well, but that doesn't mean the whole economy is doing well. You're going to have scandals like savings and loan. You're going to get rid of the Glass-Steagall Act that says you can't speculate on Wall Street. And so we're going to deregulate the stock market. We're going to cut taxes for the rich. Someone who's paying $700,000 in taxes in the 70s are going to cut it in half. And you're also going to have like conspicuous consumption. So the problem with the idea of trickle-down economics is if Donald Trump makes a lot of money, that's a big if, what is he going to do it? Is he going to spend it on, employing people? No, he's going to spend it on like another mansion and another plane and another car. These are all pictures of him in the 80s. Anyway, yuppies, upper class, this is the ideal of the 80s. Along with this, you have this like stereotype of welfare queens. You have a lot of anti-poor resentment where people are like, oh, people on welfare are buying Cadillacs. All of this stereotypes comes from one woman who scammed Social Security, but now people are generalizing it that this is what people on welfare do. And Congress is going to cut $25 billion in programs that help the poor, and 408 to households who are cut up from the AFDC, or food stamps. All right, this is a long story. Do you want to hear a long story? You're gonna hear a long story. It doesn't matter. All right, this is me when I was like 8 years old. I was born in '76. I don't know when this happened. Anyway, I was very young. All right, here's a sad story. Okay. So, when I was in a school lunch, do they still do nose and toes against the wall? This is a thing. So, like, when you're in the cafeteria, when you were in, like, elementary school, and, like, you were bad, like, what they used to do to me in the 80s is they would scream at you nose and toes against the wall. You have to get up out of lunch. It didn't matter if you didn't finish your lunch. You had to throw your lunch away, and then you had to stand with your nose and your toes against the wall. And there'd be just like a lineup of all the bad kids. Do they still do that in elementary school? What do they do if you're bad in elementary school? Like if you're like cutting up? Nothing? Were you guys all good? What do they do to bad kids in elementary school at lunchtime? Time out? You had to stand? So Kennedy, you had to stand? No recess.
Yeah, one time I forgot to get something signed, and they were like, "You can't play, go stand." And you have to stand and watch all the other kids play.
You just had to stand there?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I thought they had, like, gotten better. Oh, you had silent lunchtime or no recess. Okay. Yeah, no, they would, like, make us, like, dump our lunch out and then, like, stick our noses and toes up against the wall. Anyway, it was a different time. So, I was always a good kid. I never had nose and toes against the wall. And, okay, side note. So... I went through like the lunch line, right? You know, and you're like do, and you get your food, you get your milk, and you get like your French fries or whatever. And then at the end of the line, there was a lunch lady who just had a huge bottle of ketchup, and she would pour ketchup all over everything. And I hated ketchup. And every day I'd be like, "Ma'am, please, I don't like ketchup," and it would be all over. She wouldn't listen to me. So anyway, my point being, I talked to my mom. Yes. And so I talked to my mom, and I was like, "Mom, like, she doesn't listen to me. I can't eat my lunch. I'm hungry." And so my mom was like, "I have an idea. Put your hand, like, over your French fries, and then she can't put the ketchup on there. Oh, she'll see it. Maybe she just doesn't hear you." And I was like, that is a great idea. So I go through the lunch line, and I'm like, I'm going to try this new plan. And so I put my hand over the French fries, and she just pours ketchup all over my hand, and I flip. I just like flipped out. And there's like 8-year-old me. I take my tray and I just throw it at the woman. And I'm just like, "I hate ketchup." And then, what's my point? I got nose and toes. That's when I got nose and toes. And then like my teacher came in and she was like, "Why did you get nose and toes?" And I'm like, "I hate ketchup." I gotta say this though, I never got ketchup after that. And this is one of those things, you're gonna get old and you're gonna learn about history and you're gonna be like, "That's why that happened?" The reason why that happened is, I found out, is that Reagan had made ketchup a vegetable. Okay. So he cut school funding to lunches, and then to save money, because you know, like how now if you get a lunch, they're like, "Well, I have to put this orange on your plate because it's a vegetable." They had to put ketchup on my plate because it was a vegetable. And basically the lunch lady was mandated by the USDA to put ketchup on my plate because that was my only vegetable. So anyway, yes, I don't know. Anyway, my point being, I found out why I got into this huge ketchup fight at lunch. This is the good part about history. You don't even know what a breakthrough this was for me. Anyway, the other thing that's happening is the war on drugs, right? Nixon actually starts the war on drugs as part of his law and order. If you think about it, who hates Nixon? The hippies. How can Nixon get the hippies? Take a war on drugs. So like, I don't know, black nationalists and hippies. He's like, we're going to use this war on drugs. There's literal recordings of him saying this to go after his political enemies. So it starts under Nixon, and then this is when we get Reagan. I am going to say this. Just like we have a conservative consensus that cutting taxes is good, and really, even up to Obama, I love Obama, we don't really question the war on drugs. We are just now starting to question the war on drugs, but like people do not question the war on drugs. This is incarceration rates. It goes up under Clinton, right? So this is a massive thing. The war on drugs continues from Reagan on. Clinton is no better than Reagan. Why is so many black folks going to jail? Well, it's not because they do more drugs. It's that they do different drugs. So white folks were more likely to use cocaine. Like if we go back to like, I don't know, Studio 54 in the 1980s and all of these yuppies, are they doing drugs? Yes. But what are they doing? Cocaine, right? What are folks doing in the inner city? Crack. It's literally the same thing put in a different way. And crack is going to have an 18-to-1 sentencing disparity. So if you have this much crack in your pocket, a little teeny tiny amount, you are going to jail for the same amount as this amount of cocaine, right? No one is going to like the whatever dance party with this amount of cocaine. They're not in trouble. This amount of crack, they're just like rounding people up and they're all going to jail. There was a stigma that crack was worse than cocaine. It's not necessarily true, and it is devastating places, but anyway. Also, anyway, I'm not going to do this, but I will say this. The immigration, what is happening in the 1980s, and basically from 1965 on, is the United States is diversifying. LBJ gets rid of racial discrimination in immigration, just like he did with the Civil Rights Act and these other things. So we are no longer going to have the Chinese exclusion. We're no longer going to have quotas. And so after 1965, a lot of folks move into the United States from Asia, from South America, from all over the world. We are going to have a much more diverse society starting in 1965. I will say that Reagan, this is not his biggest issue. But he does start to kind of crack down on people who hire illegal immigrants. Anyway, on his foreign policy, Reagan is going to roll back the evil empire. Reagan is going to kind of like reinvigorate the Cold War and fight against the godless communists. He sees, oh God, something's happening. Hold on. Sorry, that was my son. So he with the evangelicals, he's gonna say, you know what? Under Nixon, we had detente. We were thawing our like relations with the communists, and he's like, no, we are gonna end. We're not just gonna contain communism. We are gonna end communism. He increases the rhetoric. He's like unapologetic about Vietnam. He calls the Soviets the evil empire, and he puts America as this amazing city upon a hill. This is his famous speech where he's like, tear down this wall, right? One example is in the Iran-Contra scandal. The Sandinistas he saw as communists, and Reagan is trying to fight the Sandinista in Nicaragua, and he supports the Contras in this fight. The problem is that the Contras engage in terrorist activities, torture, kidnappings. The Sandinista do the same. But when Congress hears about their atrocities, also half of these anti-communist things in Central America are being funded through like narco trade. Anyway, we can get into that a different day. But Congress prohibits sales to the Contras with the Boland Amendment. So Congress says, you know what, these Contras are bad people. We do not want to like support them. Now, this is what they tell Reagan, but what is Reagan going to do is the Iran-Contra scandal, where he does two illegal things. He sells arms to Iran to get the money, funnel it through the CIA, send it to the Contras. This is illegal. That is illegal. He's going to sell stuff to Israel. Anyway, he's basically stoking all of these wars, and it is all illegal. Oliver North is going to take the fall. He is now on Fox News. And Reagan claims he doesn't know about this. But essentially, we sold illegal weapons to Iran and gave money to the Contras who were fighting the Sandinistas. And Reagan is just like, I didn't know about it. He probably did. We're also going to fund anti-communists in Afghanistan. These are the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen are going to get rocket launchers and guns and money and all of these things because at this point they are fighting the Soviets. What are some of these rocket launchers going to become is aimed at the United States later as the Mujahideen. Many of them turn into the Taliban, but that is later. The other thing is that we increase defense spending. We have lasers in the sky. This is the big thing, Star Wars. We spend $200 billion on lasers in space to shoot down missiles. They said it couldn't be done. It couldn't be done. It never happened. But what Reagan is going to do is he pretends like it's real, and he uses it as a negotiating strategy in, against the Soviets. So he would go to the Soviets, and the Soviets would be like, you have to get rid of Star Wars. And he'd be like, never. Anyway. Now, did it work, right? Some people say it did. The Soviet Union is going to collapse, right? Some people say it is economic problems. They can't keep up with the arms race. They can't handle it. They can't keep up with the kind of like economies of the West. You also have globalization. You have cable. You have all of these things. Yeah, so spending $2 billion on space lasers instead of school lunches. So yeah, I am getting ketchup on my hand while we're paying for not real space lasers. That's true. That's how it was. Gorbachev is also trying to make reforms in the Soviet Union. He is doing perestroika, which is a restructuring of the economy, and glasnost, which is an opening. Essentially what Gorbachev does is he has a little teeny tiny crack. He's like, I'm going to just like reform this a little bit, and people go crazy, right? You have revolutions in Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, Czechoslovakia, and then the Berlin Wall is going to come down in 1989. The Berlin Wall coming down in 1989, essentially people heard like maybe this gate was going to be open, and then everyone stormed that gate, and then they just took down the wall. This is the symbolic end of the Cold War. There is a lot that happens after it, but the fall of the Berlin Wall is the end of the Cold War, right? Soviet Union is dismantled, and capitalism and democracy wins. Woo! We have the end of history. The world has seen that free trade and capitalism and limited government is the way to go. We have a McDonald's in Beijing. We have international corporations. All we have to do now is just like sit back in peace and prosperity and maintain against any threat, right? And so this new world order is this idea that the Soviet Union is done, we are the only superpower, and now we are out of this bipolar world. It is not a competitive world anymore. And the new world order, this is from Bush 1. Bush 1 says that, right, we an era in which the nations of the world, east, west, north, south, can prosper and live in harmony. Now, he is talking about there's a crisis in the Persian Gulf, but this time it's not going to be a competition. We are all going to work together. Because what happens is Iraq invades Kuwait, right? Iraq invades Kuwait over oil and over the Persian Gulf, and Saddam Hussein is responsible. But because they invade, what are we going to do? We're going to have a coalition. We're going to cooperate with Russia. We're going to have the United Nations. We're going to have 36 countries. This is the New World Order. One person, Saddam Hussein, steps out of line, and we are going to put it down together as the world, right? So you have the Persian Gulf War in 1991 under the first Bush. Saddam Hussein is going to go down. We have smart bombs. We have shock and awe.
Your Iraqi air base are continuing.
Oh, come on. And Saddam Hussein is put in his place, right? We liberate Kuwait as a world. Saddam remains in power, but yeah, that is to be continued. So only 140 soldiers died in the Persian Gulf, the first Persian Gulf War. Weapons inspectors are installed from the UN. We erase this Vietnam syndrome. We think that we can keep winning. Saddam Hussein remains in power, but the UN keeps inspectors there. This is a lead up to the next Iraq war with Bush Jr. Now, just again, this new world order is a rule of law. It is cooperation. It is order. It is when people step out of line, you're going to get taken down. This is the first H.W. Bush. Then in 1992, this guy is going to come in. Who is he? The cool cat with a saxophone. You guys know him. Do we like Clinton? Do we know about
Bill Clinton?
Do we like him? Do we have
He's
feelings
pretty cool.
for? You think he's cool?
Funny.
He's pretty funny. He is.
Yeah. Just like the Monica Lewinsky thing always gets me every time.
It is complicated. All right. So one thing I will say about Clinton is they call him a new Democrat. He is a lot like the Republicans. He did play. Oh, he could play. He could play a little bit. I don't know. Are you a saxophone player? Have you seen him play? He did play. I don't know if he was good. You think it was faked? You think 9/11 was an inside job? He played saxophone at his inauguration too. I think he played on Arsenio Hall. Anyway, he's charismatic, right? He's young, but really he believes in a lot of the same things. He did try to allow gays and lesbians into the military, but it failed, and he ended up compromising with don't ask, don't tell. He tried to reform the healthcare system, and it failed, and he did balance the budget. He still believes in cutting spending. He still believes in cutting taxes, and he still believes in the war on drugs. The other thing is that he had the Congress was very conservative. This was the moral majority, the contract with America. And so this plays in when we get here. All right, I'm going to play it. Let me make sure I have the sound on. Share. Sound. All right, let's go. You guys love this clip. I don't know why people love this clip so much. Watch his face. It's amazing.
But I want to say one thing to the American people.
Look at his eyes.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
I feel like he needs to do a mic drop at the end of it. That's the only thing missing is just like mic drop, right? Okay. Monica Lewinsky, she is young. A lot of with the Me Too movement is taking a new look at how mean people were to Monica, how young she was. And I do want to say that. She was really made fun of a lot. Bill and Monica. Now, so Clinton says this is from a press thing, right? So he's not going to get in trouble for saying this at a press thing. If you got in trouble for saying this at a press thing, we would have no politicians. The problem is he testified under oath, right? And when he testified under oath, the same thing, he's going to get in trouble over perjury. Okay. I'm just going to stop this here. I'm going to put it on my face. Okay. What happened? Oh my God. Magnus, you need to go away. I literally have like 5 minutes to talk about this Clinton scandal. I'll talk to you in 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Go in your room. All right. So, what happens is, sorry guys. There's an investigation into this allegation, and essentially because he said it under oath, they're going to create an investigation under the Kenneth Starr investigation. Kenneth Starr spends millions of dollars investigating, did Bill Clinton have sex with Monica Lewinsky? Now, I was in DC when they released this report. It was like this huge photocopied book, right? They were like handing this out of trucks. When it came out, it was hot off the presses. I had friends who were like aides at like, you know, the Senate and all these things. They got a copy of it, they brought it to the college, and they opened it up, and it was like the most scandalous book ever. They'd be like, oh my God, read page 50. They'd be like, there's a dress. And I'd be like, there's a dress? And I'd be like, there's evidence on a dress. There was stories about cigars. There was stories about her hiding under the desk. There are stories about all these things. There is all this evidence. There are interviews with her best friends. There are all these things. Now, this is where Clinton is, unfortunately, he's called Slick Willie. That's literally his nickname, even before this happened. Anyway, so what is his defense when he is brought up on charges of perjury, and there's all this evidence that some nasty stuff had happened, is that he only defines sexual relations as vaginal intercourse. I don't know. Am I saying that? Yes, right? And so everything else that they had done was like oral sex and these other things and cigars. None of it was, I don't know, what you would maybe like basically define as like vaginal intercourse. Anyway, so he goes on, he's like, I did not lie. I don't define sexual relations as any of that stuff. So the whole nation for like a year had to have a discussion on what was and what was not sexual relations, because he was getting charged with perjury. Anyway, does that make sense? So, does he get impeached? It's similar to, what do you call it? It's similar to Trump, where the House is going to charge him, but the Senate says no. So anyway, he's not kicked out of office. He remains in office. He's not, no one has ever been actually convicted of any impeachment yet. Nixon resigned. The other thing he's going to do, this often shows up on the LEAP, is NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Essentially, you know, anything manufactured in Mexico can be freely transported to the United States or Canada. There's essentially no barriers between the three. This has been blamed for a decrease in manufacturing in the United States, and actually Trump campaigned heavily against NAFTA. But again, this has been part of this consensus: is free trade is good. The war on drugs is good, and what else? Cutting taxes is good. Clinton is also going to continue down the path of the New World Order. He tries to do a lot with, humanitarian aid, but one of them goes bad in Somalia when it's called like the Black Hawk Down in the Battle of Mogadishu. 18 U.S. servicemen are going to be killed and their bodies were dragged through the streets. People see this and they're like, why are we helping these people? And we start to kind of pull out of Mogadishu and we start to pull back from these humanitarian efforts. And it starts to become unpopular. This is going to be a big thing because in Rwanda, when we have ethnic cleansing, we don't help. The 2000 election was very contentious. This was Gore versus Bush 2, and there were these crazy butterfly ballots where people thought they were voting for Gore, but they were voting for Pat Buchanan. There were all these irregularities in Florida where Katherine Harris was Bush's manager. And the Florida Supreme Court approves a recount. And so they start recounting. They're looking at ballots. They're like, which ones count? And then when it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, they're going to stop the recount. And Bush is going to be declared the winner in Bush v. Gore. This is Bush 2, Bush Jr., or W. He's going to roll back environmental protections. He is a conservative and more tax cuts. He is also around at the time of globalization. And Mexico is our second largest trading partner, and he is around during September 11th. When the World Trade Center is attacked, he is there. So this is going to be a changing moment for U.S. foreign policy and all of U.S. life. Osama bin Laden is responsible, but it shows that there's not really a new world order. Some people call it jihad versus McWorld, where you have like forces of fundamentalism versus forces of globalization. Now you have like radicals who can take a plane and fly it into a building. This is crazy. How can you stop that? So we start the war on terror and we massively restructure our intelligence. We, change how people get on airplanes. And immediately we go to war in Afghanistan, which makes sense because Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and Osama bin Laden are there. They are the ones responsible. But then we turn to Iraq. And in Iraq, Saddam Hussein, who has been there since the first Persian Gulf War with his dad, Bush too starts to claim that he has weapons of mass destruction. Bush is going to come up with a doctrine called the Bush Doctrine, where we should be able to go to preventative war. We shouldn't have to wait for them to attack us like 9/11. We should be able to take out threats before they take us out. And we need to spread democracy. And we can do this unilaterally. So the biggest example of this is in Iraq. Powell gives a speech to the UN. He's like, they have weapons of mass destruction. One little tiny vial of this could take out a whole city, right? Bush is like, we can't let the smoking gun be a mushroom cloud. And he says, we need to go. The UN says, we don't believe you, and doesn't send anyone. And Bush is like, okay, then we're going to go by ourselves and we are going to invade Iraq. So we go to Iraq. They had nothing to do with 9/11. We call them an axis of evil. And essentially we are like, you are either with us or you are against us. And the war drags on. We say mission accomplished, but it is still going on. Like literally still in Afghanistan. I think we ended it in Iraq, but we are still dealing with it. I don't know. I'm going to say that that's Barack Obama. I'm going to say we're out. I'm going to say we have 1 minute. I'm going to say good luck. I am going to say that's it. Peace out. Drop the mic. You can stick around if you have any questions. Take care. Email me if you have any questions. Please reach out. I'm here to help you. Take care of yourselves. Okay? Goodbye. 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 Good luck. Goodbye. Goodbye. Good luck. Goodbye. Goodbye. Good luck. Good luck. Goodbye. Goodbye. Good luck. Goodbye. Goodbye. Good luck.